extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help. Because, you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from a lot of family history of, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
Cómo pensar educarla, cómo educar a un hijo, porque pues nosotros nunca, es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me. Even though I was not a first-time mom, I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. She was straightforward when, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. Just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her, and I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. And the fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá, lo primero que haría sería recomendarle el programa porque te entrega mucho apoyo, mucha información y más que nada como apoyo emocional, una guía, te da una visión diferente de cómo es ser papá aquí, quizás en este país.
Y así pues es algo, un bonito programa, porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros.
Board of Supervisors meeting for Mendocino County. Going to call the meeting to order at 9:01. Clerk, could you conduct the roll call?
Supervisor Klein?
Here.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Here.
Supervisor Hashak?
Here.
Supervisor Norvell?
Here.
Supervisor Williams?
Yes.
All right, and I'm going to invite the Representative Helen Sims, who's the chairperson pro tem for the grand jury, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right. At this point, we're going to have public expression. So if there's anyone from the public who wants to comment on items that are not on the agenda, please come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Dee Pallison from District 5. I'm here to speak to you again about the board's rules of procedures, specifically Rule 4C. While I understand that this rule is not a true violation of the Brown Act, the perception is it provides the opportunity for information to not be shared with the public. I appreciate the link to the document that County Council has now included in the current CEO report, which does a good job of explaining the Brown Act. This document further reinforces my argument that the Brown Act's intent is to provide transparency and inclusion of the public in the decision-making process. I understand that you say your intent is not to keep information from the public, but the way Rule 4C is written, each of you could ask for and receive additional information that could influence your decision on any issue, and that information could not be shared with the public. We have a right to all the information you have that helps you decide any issue. You are asking us to trust you to follow the intent of the rule without any further clarification. But you currently, as a body, do not adhere to all the other rules of procedure, so why should we trust you to follow this one? Rule 32 states that you will report out on all standing committee meetings at the next regular meeting. Yet at the regular meeting on March 11th, neither Super Mulhern, the chair of the General Government Committee, nor Supervisor Norvell reported out on the February 26th meeting of that committee. If we can't trust that you will follow this simple rule, how can you expect us to trust that you will follow the intent of Rule 4C? All I'm asking is that you include language in Rule 4C that states that if any of you ask for any additional information outside of a public meeting, you will share that information with the public during this discussion of that item when it is on the agenda. It really doesn't feel like too much to ask or expect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Teresa McNerlin, I'm a county resident. I grew up here. I sit on an elected board. I sit on 2 other boards, and I'm a combat veteran, a wife, and a mom. Mendocino County CEO Darcy Antle has taken a leading role in unnecessarily costing our county hundreds of thousands and possibly millions of dollars. She has demonstrated to be of poor judgment, lacks discernment, and is absent of integrity and honesty. An example of this is the many times she lied while under oath in court, committing perjury. I witnessed this firsthand when she lied about when a contract was executed. When faced that it was actually signed 2 years after she said it was signed, she sat there and pretended that she didn't know what it meant to execute a contract. And it was her signature. We've also learned that she committed perjury at least 4 more times regarding the knowledge of the disputed 470 pay code. Making poor decisions is nothing new for the CEO. Let's not forget how she single-handedly and without consulting the VA staff moved the Veterans Office, only to move it back again after public outrage, or the insistence of consolidating the Auditor Controller and the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office to one department under her control. This is clearly a lack of checks and balances. The people of this county want an elected Auditor Controller, and we want a separate elected Treasurer and Tax Collector. I have to assume that this stupid decision to consolidate was made by the board and the CEO is so the DA's office parties at the Broiler Steakhouse can continue without being questioned. Darcy Antle continues to make poor decisions. She has ordered our elected Auditor Controller to not speak to the person who held her job for the last 17 months and has unnecessarily put hoops for the Auditor Controller to do her job for this county. This is not how you do business in a county, nor does it benefit the people that live here. Darcy Antle has brought her high school mean girl drama to this county, and it's embarrassing. We cannot trust the CEO. She has proven to be untrustworthy, unprofessional, and a liar. I believe that her poor decisions, her ease in committing perjury, and her misappropriation of public funds and approving a Broiler Steakhouse dinner for the DA's office party is grounds for immediate termination without any pay or benefits. When is this board going to shake yourself out of your stupor and do something? Our Auditor Controller was found guilty of nothing. In fact, the judge said she was a whistleblower. And in return, you removed her from office without pay or benefits, and now you're refusing to make her whole. Poor advice is just that. It's advice. You don't have to follow it. You can have an independent thought and make an independent decision. Clearly, the advice to remove Ms. Cubizin was total rubbish. I urge you to do the right thing now. Fire the CEO, pay our Auditor Controller her back pay and benefits, and support her in the work that she's doing for this county.
Thank you.
No, 30 more seconds.
You've had 3 minutes. Thank you. Cut her off, please. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, Board. My name is Rose Scahill, and I'm a lifelong resident of Potter Valley. I'm here to speak about the unsafe road conditions in our area. Last night at 8 o'clock at night, on East Road near mile marker 4.50, I hit a very deep pothole in my 2020 Toyota Yaris. That caused a rip in my tire as big as 2 fingers. There was no safe place to pull over for close to a quarter mile, which scared me. It took over an hour in the dark to change the tire and limp home 3.7 miles. This isn't the first time this has happened, unfortunately, but this is the first time I am speaking up. Our roads in Potter Valley have hundreds of dangerous potholes, and the deterioration has forced people to drive in unsafe conditions for years. For the sake of first responders, families, our friends, all the people of the community of Potter Valley, something more must be done. The Department of Transportation's minimal efforts of one single truckload of asphalt at a time, with men with shovels filling these potholes, are not good enough. As soon as it rains, after these fillings, the asphalt erodes and the holes remain. The pothole I hit last night has been marked with orange spray paint. I am sure I'm not the only one who has had damage from these holes. So please, Mendocino board members, hear us and help us achieve safe road conditions for our community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I want to thank the speaker for coming here today to share their experience. As you are my constituent in Potter Valley, I'd ask that you could also grab a business card from the executive office so we can talk further about this issue. And thank you again for showing up.
Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, I wanted to note Supervisor Klein and I have an item scheduled about increasing road maintenance budget. And we're also coming up on annual budget cycle. You may want to come back and be part of that discussion. I would ask that we be careful to not blame the public servants who are working on the road. they're doing their job. They're doing it diligently. They're working in rough conditions out in the rain a lot of times. The issue is really with the board how much we're going to allocate to DOT, not a question of how hard DOT works.
Ms. Lori Leaf, 51-year resident of Mendocino County. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm here to express my thoughts regarding Cubison and Kennedy case. I am shocked that there is a board direction to refuse payment to Shamice and Paula for all their related expenses of the criminal case. The board decision in the first place to pursue this case was clearly wrong from the beginning. There has been an abundance of suffering, lies, hidden facts, lost time, waste of money, mistrust, and so much that the public will never know about. For decades, there has been serious financial issues in Mendocino County, and you choose to fire an elected, honest, and very qualified person. Big mistake. Why it would make sense to fire the one person in the county who knows more about accounts receivable and accounts payable doesn't make sense to me. For $68,000, the county has lost $1 to $2 million, or possibly north of that, in criminal case, and now you want to pile on more expense. The same qualified and honest judge will hear the civil case. This was started by an attorney, and it continues by more attorneys who are looking for work. We, the people of Mendocino County, will lose again, this time even more money as civil cases are pushed behind criminal cases, and time is money. These cases will mean an even larger loss to discretionary spending at a difficult time in our economic history. Years ago, when combining the auditor, controller, tax collector offices was considered, those who spoke had little or no support, and this was by the county employees and the public. The board went forward as employees said they would quit, and they did. At that time, there was a difficult new computer system which was hard to work with. These offices were reshuffled, different bosses for 1.5 years, and then the new boss was fired by the board members. Now comes the new boss and court case. Then court case was thrown out. Ms. Cubison is back with employees, and you decide that she shouldn't be compensated. And a lot of other expenses as well. That leaves me wondering about your concern for responsible spending and concern for county employees. I'm asking you to admit the mistake, pay for it, and move on to business at this time. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, could I please get a clear restatement of the speaker's name?
Speaker, could you state your name again? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Ellen Drell. Tomorrow, the General Government Committee will take up the issue of staff's reinterpretation of how much square footage of mature cannabis for sale the county's cannabis ordinance allows per parcel. This is sometimes referred to as the density rule, but the issue is not about the density of licenses per parcel. There's no debate about that. The answer is 2. What's at issue is the maximum square footage of cultivation allowed per parcel. Does the addition of a second license type on a parcel double the allowed cultivation area to 20,000 square feet per parcel, or is the maximum square footage of the 2 license types added together capped at 10,000 square feet per parcel? I and many others think the ordinance is clear, that the maximum allowed per parcel is 10,000 square feet. However, this year-long debate does indicate that the language of this section of the law is considered by some to be ambiguous. What happens if there is ambiguity in a law, especially when the current lawmakers are not the authors of the law? A court will look at the legislative history and the practice of implementation to determine the intent and meaning of the section in question. This look has been going on informally for almost a year. In September of 2024, the Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 to direct staff to draft language that would clarify the original intent that was to cap the cultivation area of mature plants for sale at 10,000 square feet per parcel, whether the cultivator had 1 or 2 license types. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Staff returned to the board 1 month later with draft language, but again with its own interpretation of the history and meaning of the law. The board took no action, and staff has continued to implement its own reinterpretation of the law. Why does this matter? The maximum area of, 2 reasons basically. The maximum area of cannabis cultivation allowed per parcel is a major tenet of this law and has the potential to create significant impacts on the ground. And 2, and perhaps most importantly, we are a society governed by laws that are proposed, debated, written, adopted, and sometimes amended by our elected representatives, all in public, with public participation. This reinterpretation by staff of the county cannabis law was conceived, written, and adopted in secret. Even those who might prefer staff's interpretation know that it's not okay to alter the meaning of a law in secret and then foist it on the public. I see no reason why this Board of Supervisors could not simply codify the language of its September 2024 motion, clarifying this section of the ordinance, and bring this uncertainty and legal limbo to a close without further delay and or expense. In fact, this board could simply lift the language verbatim from a 2017 memo to the board from County Council,
Thank you.
which makes very clear.
Dana Fraunberger. Today I would like to comment on the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector. Fortunately, I had the time to sit in on every single word of testimony in the Cubson-Kennedy case and the hearings. And the issue of credibility came up, and CEO Antle and other county employees, it was stated that they were not credible. I heard a lot of things there, and it was very disappointing as a citizen, a lifelong citizen of this county, on how many hundreds of thousands of dollars has been spent on this. Basically, it's a witch hunt. I kept waiting. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I kept waiting for some evidence, and there was nothing, 0. It was shameful. It was really, I love this county, it was shameful. And I am very disappointed by the actions of the Board of Supervisors. Not the new ones, I understand, but I am very disappointed on your actions. You're getting terrible advice. But I really want to discuss CEO Antle's leadership decisions. Under oath, she stated that she personally checks all 1,200, 1,400, however many employees there are. She said 1,200. Personally checks their time cards, personally. And her deputy CEO, so there's 2 eyes on it. I think that is a terrible leadership decision for our chief executive officer to be doing this work. She would like to be the payroll manager. She should apply for the job. The perjury, I was there when she said, I have not heard about 470. I didn't talk to anybody about 470. I never knew about 470, as well as other county employees said the exact same thing. But now it's come out that she knew about it 6 months before Ms. Cubson brought it to her attention. And so this has been, if she didn't say it then, if she didn't bring it up then, think about how many thousands of dollars, well, Ms. Kennedy deserved the work, but how many thousands of dollars it could have stopped then, but it went on another 6 months. Why would she not put it in the best use and why would she not bring it to the attention if that's the case? And she didn't, and then she lied about it on the stand. So I recently read on the agenda that she did speak and ask for some of her CEO duties, her workload to be reduced, things that CEOs have already done, a month ago, perhaps, that meeting. And like I said, she's instead choosing to check everybody's time cards, which she has, it's silly. So I think the perjury issue really needs to be investigated. I think you need to look into that. And I do believe that it needs to be from an independent investigator, because I do not believe that it can happen in this county without bias. Lastly, I just think it's time to get back to work and stop the bleeding. This case is ridiculous. Pay the lady her money.
Thank you.
And let's move on.
Mark Donegan, self-healing practitioner and educator, ordained minister, aka Goldilocks. Gratitude and appreciation, Eddie the hot dog guy in Alex Thomas Plaza. It's a beautiful day. Eddie to me is the pulse of the town, and I was sitting there yesterday wishing there was a massage guy set up outside. I'll be back at it sometime. And I also want to thank Supervisor Norvell for what you put in the ABA, explaining what happened at the Behavioral Health Advisory Board meeting that I missed. I missed my own meeting. Been kind of rough. And the same thing to Supervisor Mulherring. You did the same thing on Facebook. You did a review, or basically report out of the meeting very quickly on Facebook. I appreciate that. It was quick and concise. So between the two of you, you covered me well. And then I think everybody else had the same thing I had on their minds this morning. I'm coming from a little bit different place. I understand that people get handed things, that government is a continuing cycle, it never stops. We do the best with what we can. Nobody's perfect. If anybody's going to stand before me and try to say they're perfect, I have a problem. So what do you do when you do something wrong? Well, you guys are in government and you've been told and you've got attorneys, you can't admit that you're wrong. But you can set a different tone. And I don't want to give in to rumors. I don't care. I care what I see. And what I saw last time was the auditor controller come up, give her a report. Exactly as I asked, nobody gave her any trouble. She walked out. I think that's what I asked for, like when I first walked up here, for these three arms to work together. As far as I'm concerned, I see them working together. I'm not, the court cases are the court cases. You guys got hell of attorneys. It's out of your hands. Don't worry about it. Put it off your shoulders and do the county work, and I appreciate that you do that so well. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in the chambers, any online?
We have two online. First is Karen Bowers and then Paul Garza.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. I'd like to start out. I'm Karen Bowers. I live on the Mendocino coast. I'm not a robot. That was a short film that won the Oscar this year. I'm conveying this because of what I had to go through to submit a comment on an agenda item. One needs to set up an account to submit a comment. I had an account, but I couldn't get into it. I had to keep going through I am not a robot. Felt like getting a real ID in that process. In the old days, there was a clerk of the board where one could submit a comment letter and the clerk would provide the comments to the board members. I understand, of course, that you don't have a clerk anymore, but for the sake of public participation, perhaps when an item comes up on the agenda and there has been public comment, perhaps there might be some acknowledgement that there were X number of comments submitted, X number for, X number against, to be announced to the board and the public watching the meeting for the people in the chamber that don't know perhaps how what the comments are and so forth. For people who can't travel to Ukiah or don't know how to navigate the e-comment system, for the sake of public participation, perhaps acknowledgement that public participation has occurred might be provided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Paul Garza.
Paul.
Chairman Hashik, members of the board, my name is Paul Garza, and I'm here as the chair of the Mendocino Coast Healthcare District. As most of you know, the district recently went through a renegotiation of its lease agreement between the district and Adventist Health. I'm sure that Supervisors Williams and Norvell are aware that we were able to reach a positive resolution in these negotiations without any change to our existing agreement. Today, I wanted to make sure that each of you are aware of this positive outcome, and hopefully that message will continue to reach all of our residents. And that further, as a result of this negotiation process, the communication between the district and Adventist Health has improved substantially. They are fully engaged in our process of planning our future facility. And in fact, the Adventist Health CEO has recently stated that they are on the coast for the long term. So that's some very good news that I think is worth continuing to share. On the other hand, while this is all very positive, I also wanted to make you aware of a very significant threat to our hospital's future. We are receiving consistent reports of the intention of the current Congress to substantially reduce, if not eliminate, all of the funding for the federal Medicaid program. Medicaid, of course, in California, of course, funds 60% of all Medi-Cal expenditures. What is very important to recognize is that our community hospital receives 78% of its reimbursement of services from Medicare and Medi-Cal. Medicaid and Medi-Cal alone represent 39% of all reimbursement for services in fiscal year 2024 for the hospital. That's approximately $32 million. So the result is, should these cuts to Medicare occur, the hospital's future will be in serious doubt. So just wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garza. And certainly the county is watching that and what those cuts would mean for Mendocino County and the hospitals and the health clinics. And so we are very aware of that. Thank you. Okay, seeing no further public expression, we'll move on to the consent calendar. I didn't have anything polled beforehand. At this point, does anyone want to poll anything from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. Are there any public comments about the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none in the chambers. Any online?
Seeing none.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
All right, we'll move on to item 4A, discussion and possible action including acceptance of informational reports from the assessor, clerk recorder, registrar of voters, auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, district attorney, sheriff, and various county department heads or designees. Okay, I see the assessor, Katrina Bartolome. Welcome.
Good morning, all. I'm Katrina Bartolome, assessor, county clerk recorder, registrar of voters. I wanted to give you an update on our offices. We've had, as I reported last month, we have pulled just about everybody off of their normal duties so we can finish up our Williamson Act project. So we do have a few discoveries from letters that were previously sent, and we were able to put some money onto the tax roll. So our techs have been working with the appraisers to get the recovery, the Williamson Act recovery value done. Our discovery numbers aren't what they normally are. In February, the discovery letters previously sent out, we added $90,000 in assessed value in March and $170,000 in assessed, $90,000 in February and $170,000 in March. We are about 80% complete with our Williamson Act project. We are in the validation, testing, and processing phase now. We have discovered an issue with our program. Does that surprise any of you? Thank you. So we found that if there's an existing escape or correction on some of the Williamson Act properties, that they can't go through normally. So not all of them, just some of them. And it's doubling the Recovery Act value. It's not adding the Recovery Act value. It's just kind of funky. So we're waiting on the vendor to help us with that. and they've got their engineers on it right now. So hopefully we'll get that resolved, and we'll still be able to meet our our April 18th deadline. And if we can't on those, then we'll hold those out, and we'll still be able to process what we have and what is correct and what we know is correct. We are working on the vendor with that. Our next project, once we close the roll, is to catch up the, before we close the roll, once we've finished the Williamson Act project, is to deal with the commercial properties and the split. So the splits, we also have had issues with the vendor, with the system. We have gone through 3 different split wizards, they're called, and now they've renamed it, and it's working a whole lot better. So we're hoping that we'll be able to do as many of those as possible before we close the roll on June 30th. Supplemental notices. The appraisers completed 258 supplemental notices for change in ownership and new construction, bringing $22 million in assessed value to the tax roll in February. And in March, they completed 118 supplemental notices, bringing $5.8 million in assessed value. These are not the prorated numbers. They're the total numbers, the total assessed value. The clerk recorder, we're gearing up for e-recording. We were hoping to begin that April 1st, but it looks like we might have to push that back because we're having problems with the vendor. We also, John, the chairman asked me to report on what our exact project is. Back in a few years ago, we discovered with the vendor, so you know the program does have good things too, that we weren't assessing the Williamson Act properties correctly. So we've gone through, and we were supposed to correct 4 years, which is 20, 21, 22, and 23. 22 and 23 are done. 20 we weren't able to do because when we went through our implementation and our conversion, we started in 2021. And so 2020 was billed, but just not with the Recovery Act like it should have been. So we're doing all our focus on 21 and 22, and that's what we're getting those done now. Do you have any questions? I see Ted.
Okay. Yeah, Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Bartlemy, for coming and sharing this information with the board. I've received some questions from folks who are receiving escape or supplementals. What would your message to them be when they receive this bill and they don't understand it? Is there something you can share with the public today to help them understand what this is and how they can move forward?
To call our office, because, you know, with this system, the bills aren't as easy to understand as with our AS400. You know, that AS400 was a workhorse, but it was at the end of its life. So we had to upgrade and everything. So they're very hard. We have to almost look at the screen to properly tell them what exactly it is. Now, by law, we can go back 4 years because the system was not up to what it should have been in the beginning. Now we're actually able to do these assessments and get them going. You know, they can work out a payment plan with the tax collector if they need to. We're sorry that this happened, although it was pretty much beyond our.
Supervisor Williams.
Well, you have my empathy working with the software.
You've been in our office.
Yeah,
You've seen it.
I've seen it. I understand the problem. With this latest project, will that fully address the issues written up? I think it was BOE 2017.
Yes.
Yeah. So then we're all caught up. Everything's good. And when do you think the project might be done? Next few months?
Well, we have a deadline of April 18th.
Yeah.
So, and that's so the auditor's office can send out what they need to do, and so all of those escapes and or corrections can go through properly.
Right. Would you thank your team for the hard work?
Thank you.
So So my understanding is that by April 18th, when hopefully you get this done, then it will go to the Auditor Controller's office, and that will be able to recoup those going back to 2021. Okay, and
In most cases, the ones that are acting wonky now, if we can't get them fixed, then they'll go after that.
but right now we're at 80%.
We're
so,
at 80%.
right.
So we've got everything entered. We're just validating, testing, and then we'll start processing.
Okay, and then with these supplementals, that it comes out to 27.8 million in the last 2 months, and that is additional tax revenue or assessment.
That's additional assessment. It's
And
not
so,
tax revenue.
Yeah, the tax revenue would be about 1% of that, and so from my calculation, it would be
Well,
close-
because it's not prorated, that 27 million, that it could be depending on when the people bought or when construction was complete. It could be a month that would go on to a particular year. It could be the full 12 months. It just depends on the proration.
Okay, so we really don't know what that is going to bring
We
the
don't.
county,
No.
right?
And I don't
yeah.
think the auditor's office won't know until we finish this project and send it on
Right.
to them. And that's normal process. It starts in our office, then it goes to the auditor, and then it goes to the tax collector.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. You responded to those questions I had about the Williamson Act last meeting, and I appreciate you coming in and kind of putting more meat on the bones of this issue.
And
right?
the one important thing is not only our appraisers and our techs that are working their tails off, but we couldn't do this without IT. IT has been instrumental. I mean, we have reports now that they've been able, Judy in IT, Adam in IT, Tony Rakes, I mean, everybody, Alex, everybody has been instrumental in getting us the reports that we need so, we get a better handle on it. And I'd like to thank Supervisor Norvell for helping me with one of his constituents last week. I called him and he called me right back, and so I was able to talk to him and find out some stuff, and so I went about it a little bit differently than I was going to, and hopefully, knock on wood, it's worked itself out.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we, on behalf of the board, we really appreciate all the work that's been done on this.
Thank you. And they're very dedicated, and they're working, and they know that we're the first step, and we have an amazing crew.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Right. I see Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamice Cubison coming up. I want to thank you because I asked you some questions about the A87 recovery and also about the transient occupancy tax. So I think you're here to address those issues.
I am. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
supervisors. So in response to your question, but I'll try to answer a little bit broader than what you actually asked me. You asked me about the A87 and whether we're able to recover from all organizations, including MCOE. And unfortunately, the answer is no. We're actually not allowed to bill the schools, and we're not allowed to bill the special districts for the A87. We do have to include them in the allocation when we calculate the A87 so that the other departments and agencies that do pay aren't paying their schools and special districts portions of it. But there are various ed codes and government codes that do not allow us to bill them for the A87 charges. We do a separate calculation for the property tax system, which is a property tax admin fee essentially. And we take those costs out of the A87, obviously, because those are property tax related and don't necessarily have something to do with every one of the other agencies we do bill or departments we bill. So we are able to recoup about 450 to 500,000 from special districts on the property tax admin portion, and that is for those districts who receive ad valorem or have direct charges placed on the tax bill for whatever their assessment is that they want, whether it be fire or some other utility. So we do recover some of those costs. But we're not, again, allowed to recover the school's portion of that. And those are decisions that were made, obviously, by the state at some point in time. So we're not able to recover those. We do bill portions of the allocation to a few entities that are not considered a full special district. So for instance, we do charge LAFCO, we do charge MTA, we charge a portion to First Five, and we do charge a portion to Air Quality. So those are some that are not standard. I just want to, food for thought, we've been discussing, my office along with the CEO's office, is whether or not we would propose to the board that we actually spread the A87 to all departments in terms of actually hitting their budget units. And so I just want to let you know that it is my opinion that we should seriously look at that, and maybe that's something that could come up next fiscal year. It would probably be wise to do it maybe as a budget adjustment to have it all happen at once. We do bill some departments right now directly because they are able to recover those costs. But by not billing departments across the board, you're not really able to see the true cost of the department. So if we did bill the department while understanding they would need to receive an additional net county cost, it would kind of flush itself out because we would be providing revenue to those internal service departments. So there would be kind of additional revenue coming in, for instance, to facilities, and yet we would be billing directly all departments that have a facility benefit, be it janitorial or whatever their other costs are. That's not something as a county we've done. Most state counties, most of our California counties do that in some fashion or another because they do want to see the full cost. It also helps for the department, while it's painful initially, for them to fully understand the cost of the internal services they're receiving. It also obviously initially would provide probably a lot of opportunity for discussion. Hopefully maybe there may be efficiencies because they would realize what their service is really costing, and they would help true up some of those costs. But that is a definite shift. That would be a difference that a lot of departments haven't seen. They may pick them up when they do their fees because they are asked to add the A87 to their fee schedule when they do the fees, so that we are making sure that we're including the costs in the fees. But they're not always feeling the full understanding of what their costs are. So that is something that I do recommend we consider in the future, so that every department can see, as well as the board and the public can see the true cost of each department.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that forward.
I will say that we also contracted with MGT last year to see if we did a comparison of them preparing the cost plan versus us preparing the cost plan, if there would be any major differences in case there was an area that we could benefit from. That is something we had discussed in the past when I was in the role. And my understanding from staff is that we did not see any serious or significant differences. There are other counties that use MGT throughout the state. They are the largest consultant that works with the most counties on their cost plan. And what a lot of counties are starting to do, and it's something we may consider, is maybe using their software rather than their consulting services, because we didn't see any great value in their consulting services because we primarily have to provide them with all the information anyway. So staff has to still gather all of the information to give to them. And so we may consider using their software program. It just provides some uniformity across the schedules and is a little bit easier than Excel because our plan is primarily in Excel. You also asked about the TOT.
Right.
So we did enter into a contract a year and a half ago, and with Granicus Host Compliance. There was a few phases to that plan. My understanding is we've only gotten through phase 1, and we are able to access the data scrubbing information. We had initially, at the time, thought that we would maybe go to reporting and collecting with their services. We did not get to that point in my absence, as far as I know. We are reevaluating whether we really want to go forward with that second phase. Staff has found benefit from the first phase of getting access to the data that is available on the internet through that program. My understanding is that we were able to pursue 30 accounts that maybe were past due out of compliance with some assistance from that program, and it brought in somewhere in the realm of $350,000. However, I want to make note that that 200,000 of that was from one particular account that was out of compliance, had been through a few different ownership changes, and I think had been difficult to pursue. So that was a big success in getting that money, but I think it also distorts the numbers a little bit in terms of a good portion of that was from one particular location. We have some concerns with the data that we get from their system. You know, they do say they've got more locations than what we show, but we've also found that, for instance, they may consider number of units as number of accounts, and that's not the case. So we may have a parcel with one property owner and we count it as one, and if they've got 4 units, they're counting it as 4. So we are still going to need to work through their data to actually validate the number of locations or accounts we should have. In the past, when we had a large push to validate, staff believes that we got probably within 95% of compliance, and we still feel we're pretty well covered. However, we do have a staff, shortage in some areas, and so in order for us to pursue the more complicated and involved processes that might require county council or other, more involved collection processes, we are looking to have additional staff work on those more complicated situations.
Let's see, can I interrupt you for a sec? Supervisor Norvell has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Back to a comment you just made about the TOT and somebody being in the rears. So help me understand, if, let's say I own an Airbnb and it's permitted and I'm in the rears on my TOT, and then I sell that property, is that still my burden, or does that stay with the property?
Well, it's going to be difficult to determine, because what we're going to have to do is actually validate what your reservations were and how much income you should have had. And so that's part of the benefit of having the software, is that software can give us some scrub history in terms of what they believe your occupancy was. So in some cases, it's going to be able to stay with the previous owner, but in some cases, we may not be able to actually determine what the missing amount is.
Thank you.
So if they've not reported and been completely out of compliance.
Okay, thank you.
And just going back to host compliance and the contract with them, is the contract a flat contract, or is it like a percentage of what they collect?
No, it was a flat. They weren't, we were asking them to provide us a portal for reporting purposes and then actually assist us with collection, but the fee was going to be based more on, like, we're talking credit card fee and some of the collection fees. But I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, it was fairly flat.
Okay, so we were, whether that's a $50,000 contract or $100,000, I don't know. Do you know?
We weren't trying to make it based on them bringing in a whole bunch more money and them getting a huge percentage of it. That wasn't how we had structured that contract.
Yeah. So, but with that contract, we were able to bring it, or at least identify $350,000.
I wouldn't say it's entirely dependent on that contract. It does give us the tools we need to be able to determine when people are out of compliance. The other benefit that we were seriously looking for, and I believe we have, even without pursuing the other phase, is that when we go to pursue a more complicated collection, we're able to print out the verification that the internet shows your calendar says you were booked. And we can print out that information and use it for counsel to provide the legal authority and basis for how we determined how much money they didn't report. So if we don't have that data scrubbing tool, we don't really have the ability to build a strong case without being able to show, how much were they charging for room at that time, what was their occupancy rate, and to be able to pull it down from all of the sources they essentially advertised it on the internet, because a lot of places don't use one. They may use 3 or 4 different vendors to actually do their reservations. So that's kind of one of the other benefits of having that program. So we are looking at whether or not it makes sense that maybe we just stick with the first version of the phase 1 with data scrubbing ability and have staff be able to run those reports themselves. And we can still ask the company for assistance on the more complicated ones where we need a more robust report to be generated. But at this time, I think we're reconsidering whether we really want to pursue collection and reporting through that vendor. Unfortunately, we're kind of small potatoes in their sphere, And so I think part of the delay is that they had much bigger fish
Oh.
to fry. And so we really don't want to get in a situation where we're dependent on them and not receiving adequate and sufficient response and data for us to be able to adequately determine how we're doing moving forward, and also get locked into a scenario where maybe we're not able to get the information out if we want to go with a different vendor.
Okay. And that 95% accurate or rate of recovery, is you're finding that to be kind of true?
Well, that was when we did a huge effort several years ago. We had done a major effort to make sure we had everybody on the roll. So what we have now is people coming on and off, right? You've got some people that sold, some people that stopped doing it, new ones that coming on. And so we're still identifying new ones. But when we look at the number of locations, what we have, and when we look at the number that host compliance, and they like to tell us it's a large number, but when we've dug into it, some of their comparison data isn't really apples to apples.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the trickier files for the TOT, our current team could potentially do that if other tasks were freed up, or you need more team members?
Well, we have made an offer to a chief deputy treasurer tax collector. If that offer is accepted, one of the duties that was the more complicated would go with that position. So we are hopeful that we're going to be able to fill that position and maybe free up some time, and that person would be assigned the more complicated tasks. We're not sure yet, obviously, because we haven't been able to go through the entire group to know how many of those cases we may have. But it is a matter of making sure we have enough staff to do those collections, and also use the, we're going to need county council's assistance with some of those as well. So it's not entirely dependent on our office. We need county council to be able to support those requests as well.
All right. Thank you for your report. Any other department heads? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 4B, discussion and possible action, including acceptance of presentation of the 2024 Supervisor Management and Emerging Leaders Academy graduates.
Excuse me, Chair. I think we need to take public comment for the last item. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment on item 4A? Okay, seeing none in the chambers, any online?
Seeing none.
All right. Okay, then we will move on to 4B. Okay, so I'll look to Sherry Johnson.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, CEO Antle, County Council, Sherry Johnson, Human Resource Director. So I'm here this morning to talk about the graduates and the Supervisors Management Academy. So it's my pleasure to recognize the 2024 graduates of our Supervisor Management and Emerging Leaders Academy. Academy consists of 9 courses offered twice annually and totals nearly 30 hours of instruction. Its purpose is to ensure unified effectiveness in our leadership and equip each leader with a common foundation of leadership skills and values, allowing us to move forward together. Some of the course topics include high performance organization, leading with effective communication, building trust in teams, performance management, the art of writing the performance evaluation, county employee policies and procedures, time management essentials, facilitation skills, and change management. I would like to read the names of the graduates. Some may be online. There might be a few in the room. But I do want to just go through. And for the Management Academy, the 2024 graduates, Brandy Dalzell, Chris Kier, John Burks, Karen Lovato, Catherine Cavness, Kelsey Turn, Quincy Cromer, David Smith, Jeff Detterman, Jason Wise, and Melissa Hernandez Gutierrez. For the Supervisor Academy, we have Richard Angley, Jeff Adair, Sean Crackbon, Denise Jesse, Leslie Delapo, Karen Matson, Connie Eaton, Sharon McCutcheon, Christina Garcia, Gretchen McLaughlin, Keith Hoyt, Miriam Ramirez, Rachel Ingwell, and Will Riley. And Susan Rogers, Philip Underwood, Francesca Rosales, Kim Venturi, Nayo Sicard, Brian Webb, Cameron Smith, Jeffrey Weston, Christina Garcia, Yoshiko Stevens, Michelle Stout. And also in the emerging leaders, there was 3 graduates that were neither in management or in supervisor, but they came to do additional skill sets. Jennifer Cheek-Payan, Anthony Davis, and Kelly Hansen. And your dedication to learning and the commitment to leadership, professional growth, and excellence strengthens our organization and community. I want to congratulate all the graduates and thank them for the time and the commitment to the County of Mendocino. And I also want to give a shout out to Katie Ford, who is our leadership coordinator, who organizes all of this. And I can't do it without her. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the presentation and for all the graduates. Speaking on behalf of the board, we really appreciate your pursuit of excellence and the professional growth.
Yeah.
Right, public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none in the chamber?
Seeing none online.
Okay, any further comments from the board? Seeing none? Okay, we'll move on and accept that presentation. Okay, item 4C, which is discussion and possible action, including approval of transmission of a letter of support for Assembly Bill 263. Supervisor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Since time immemorial, salmon runs have been the lifeblood of Native tribes. Salmon are not just food, they're central to the tribal heritage, spiritual practice, and identity. In Yurok tradition, salmon are deeply intertwined with human existence, symbolizing a profound connection between the two. The ongoing decline of salmon populations in the Klamath watershed is not merely an ecological crisis, it's a form of cultural oppression and environmental injustice against indigenous peoples. When minimum water flows are not protected, salmon die, tribal sustenance fisheries collapse, ceremonial practices are disrupted, and tribes are denied their fundamental right to sustain their way of life. Rogers Assembly Bill 263 upholds our respect for indigenous tribal communities, defends against cultural and environmental injustice, and protects a keystone species vital to our ecology and economy by safeguarding critical in-stream flows on the Scott and Shasta rivers, ensuring salmon survival while permanent water management solutions are developed. Supporting AB 263 is about fairness and balance in how we use and share water. But more than that, it's about showing genuine respect for our tribal nations and their enduring cultural heritage.
Okay.
And Chair, I believe we may have Roger's office on the line to answer some questions.
Okay, any comments from the board? Seeing none at this point, we'll go to public comment.
Good morning, Board. Adam Gaska, Mendocino County Farm Bureau. Mendocino County Farm Bureau opposes AB 263. Not only are we asking you to vote against supporting this bill, but we also request that you agendize at the earliest meeting possible to discuss opposing this bill. AB 236 would circumvent the existing process for determining minimum in-stream flow requirements. CDFW develops in-stream flows required to maintain healthy conditions for aquatic and riparian species using the best available science. Scientifically defensible in-stream flow criteria can be developed through site-specific studies and then are transmitted to the State Water Board for consideration of water allocation and appropriation actions. The California Administrative Procedures Act establishes rulemaking procedures and standards for state agencies in California. It requires California state agencies to adopt regulations in accordance with its provisions and ensures that regulations are clear, necessary, and legally valid. This process allows different interests, stakeholders, and the public at large to weigh in. This is the process that exists, and this is the process that should be followed. I met with Siskiyou County Farm Bureau board members who have been involved in this process, working to balance the needs of different interest groups in the greater Klamath River watershed, circumventing the existing processes by allowing regulation proposed by an assembly member who doesn't even represent the region being covered by this bill would circumvent that process and deprive stakeholders of the public process protections that are in place and would undermine the current local collaborative process. During the January 7th, 2025 emergency regulation readoption hearing, the State Water Board acknowledged the need to move away from the emergency regulation process and toward adoption of permanent regulations. This bill may have unintended consequences of prolonging this effort by removing the incentive to act quickly. The emergency regulations put in place by the State Water Board during a period of extreme drought are no longer necessary. In water year 2025, the Scott and Shasta watersheds have received well over 100% of their average annual precipitation, and some locations in the Scott River watershed have received over triple their historic averages. In fall of 2024, the Water Board appropriately lifted all curtailments on the Scott and Shasta rivers. Again, I urge you to vote no on supporting AB 263 and ask instead that you consider opposing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hashek and fellow supervisors. My name is Frost Pauley. I'm here asking that you do not endorse AB 263. What has happened in the Klamath River watershed is negatively affecting agriculture there in many ways. This issue for me is not about Siskiyou County or those rivers. It's about farmers right here in Mendocino County and the people who live right here in Mendocino County and the businesses and organizations who operate right here in Mendocino County. That is because AB 263 does not only apply to Siskiyou County, it sets a precedent that can be applied to any river in California. As you know, PG&E has asked for a variance on flows through the Potter Valley project each year. What if tomorrow a state assembly member from Fresno County or Tulare County asked to make that variance permanent? Without looking at data on water availability or on-the-ground conditions, how would you feel if supervisors in other counties were voting to endorse a flawed bill that impacts us in Mendocino County? Would you as a supervisor support that bill? Remove Shasta and Scott River from AB 263 and insert Garcia, Navarro, Noyo, Eel, or Russian. Would you as a supervisor support that bill? We're looking at a future according to an MOU this county has signed where 5 to 10 years from now, Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam will be removed and the State Water Resources Control Board and other state and federal agencies will be trying to determine the new flow regime to supply appropriate water right holders in the Russian River with annual water supply, a very, very complicated issue, which sounds to me a lot like what is happening in Siskiyou County. AB 263 is flawed in so many ways that it's hard to drill down on any one flaw, but let me try anyway. AB 263 has no end date. It's open-ended, removing any sense of urgency for state and federal policymakers to finish developing permanent water flow and availability regimes, or in other words, doing their jobs. It removes any incentive for the State Water Resources Board to act quickly for the protection of the environment and for the protection of water supply. 2, as I already mentioned, AB 263 is not limited to Shasta and Scott rivers. It sets a precedent that can be applied to any river in California. 3, AB 263 takes what up until now has been an emergency order and regardless of regional hydrological conditions, data, and science, establishes a statute enacted by people with zero ties or connection to the affected region. 4, AB 263 circumvents collaborative public participation and efforts between local interests, state and federal agencies, and says that anyone anywhere can dictate what happens in someone else's backyard. 5, already in its very short life, AB 263 has been opposed by the California Municipal Utilities Association, Western Growers Association, Cal Chamber, the Association of California Water Agencies, the Valley Ag Water Coalition, the California Farm Bureau, the Siskiyou County Farm Bureau, and the Mendocino County Farm Bureau. And the list is growing every day. In conclusion, AB 263 is offensive to the people of Siskiyou County, their businesses and towns, their supervisors, and their state elected leaders. Ask yourselves when the role is reversed and outsiders are trying to dictate what is best for Mendocino County, will you support that? look to the future of our water struggles, and see how AB 263 could be applied right here in Mendocino County, how it would impact our citizens, and vote not to endorse AB 263. Thank you for your time. I also submitted written comments with much more detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew Delbar. I'm a fifth generation rancher out in Potter Valley. I find it very disheartening that the board has chose to take the time to weigh in on other counties' water issues, but yet has not taken a stand to fight for our own. We are at serious risk of losing all ag land in our Russian River watershed, and the board has seemingly dedicated an agenda item to support curtailing water to producers in another county. The message being made today is not a message Mendocino County has to make and questionably should make. The board should dismiss this item or send it to committee if it so pleases to learn more about what AB 263 means. I also request that the board follows Lake County's lead in fighting for Lake Pillsbury and protecting our agricultural communities. I'll leave the board with two questions. Where is our letter of opposition to the removal of Lake Pillsbury or state of emergency for the loss of supply in our Russian River watershed? And why does the board think that supporting AB 263 should supersede opposing the removal of the Potter Valley project? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Larry Aguilera. When will we learn? When will we start thinking about Mother Earth? When will we start realizing that what we're fighting today is going to affect generations down the road? You know, we got to start thinking about the earth and what we're doing to it. Look at what she's doing to us all through the Midwest, all these hurricanes, all these tornadoes. When will we learn? If not now, when? You know, somebody has to speak up for her. You know, it's not about money anymore. It's about doing the right thing. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further comments in the chambers, any online?
We have two online, Alex Loomer and Elizabeth.
Hi, yeah, my name's Alex Loomer. I represent the Creek Tribe, who's one of the proud sponsors of AB 263, along with the Yurok Tribe and California Coast Keeper Alliance. So just wanted to kind of address some of the things that have been raised in comments and provide a little bit more context about this bill. These are very unique circumstances. So in terms of this setting precedent, the reason this bill came about was because a budget change proposal brought by the Water Board was passed last year to dedicate full-time staff to doing the long-term regs. And it's been really great hearing support from opposition about these long-term regulations. I'm really happy that we all kind of run the same place about that. The long-term regs are now underway, but every year we go back and do the emergency regulations, which we have done the last 4 years. Takes 9 water board staff. That is a ton of time and energy that can now be directed towards the long-term regulations once we just hold these emergency regulations in place. In terms of needing to hold the water board to the fire to make sure those are happening, they're asking for this. They asked for the budget change proposal. This was their suggestion. I think they're fully on board with the long-term regulations. This just frees up staff and time to put our energy towards that. Again, this is in terms of the unique circumstances. These 2 rivers are listed in the governor's salmon strategy. This is unlike any other rivers in California in terms of wanting to ensure there's flows. This is in large part because these are spawning habitats for Chinook and fall run coho salmon. This is not, again, every other river in California. These are critical tributaries to the Klamath. And when we think about how this really goes beyond just one district, we're on the brink of a 3rd year of closing salmon fisheries in California. That is a big economy in Mendocino. It's a livelihood for a lot of folks that live here. If we go a 3rd year, this is really impacting a lot of people, a lot of families. So while the spawning grounds aren't in Mendocino, the fish do come downriver and they do reach the ocean. So there are far-reaching effects to what's going on in these 2 tributaries. Also, the tribes have not had traditional salmon ceremonies for the last few years, again, because of the impacts on salmon species. This is huge for the Yurok and the Karuk. This is part of their identity. So saving salmon is not just, part of the economy and the industry. It is part of tribal identity. I think I've hit every point. In terms of, listed opposition, I'll just name a few of the groups that are listed in support. There's a long list, but they include the Amamutsun tribe, the Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's, Golden State Salmon Association, California Environmental Voters, Sierra Club, Environmental Defense Fund, California Sports Fishing Alliance, Friends of the Eel, Friends of the River, Cal Wild, Mendocino Producers Guild, and others.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you.
And then we have Elizabeth Salaman.
Good morning. This is Elizabeth Salamone. I am the General Manager of the Mendocino County Russian River Flood Control and Water Conservation Improvement District. This district respectfully requests that there be further discussion on the board's part regarding the relevance for this county to weigh in on the matter. AB 263 would provide that emergency regulations adopted by the State Water Resources Control Board for the Scott and Shasta watershed would remain in effect until the board adopted permanent rules establishing and implementing in-stream flow requirements. The Association of California Water Agencies has an opposed position on this bill because it would set precedent for extending emergency regulations and disrupting the current established process for establishing and renewing emergency regulations in times of drought. Many Mendocino County water agencies are members of ACWA, including the district, and I'm also representing our region on the statewide ACWA Board of Directors. The Russian River watershed has experience under the State Water Board's emergency regulations, which often lead to curtailment of exercising water rights. The consideration of approving emergency regulations is done so under extreme situations with extensive analysis of water supply and demand data. The proposal to establish permanent rules through extending this emergency regulation disregards analysis of regional hydrological conditions, eliminates a thorough public engagement process, and sets precedent for a similar action of extending emergency orders beyond their original intent and need in other watersheds. The State Water Board is developing long-term in-stream flow objectives in the Scott and Shasta River watersheds. In the meantime, an updated emergency regulation that maintains minimum flow requirements and authorizes curtailment orders should flows fall below those levels, went into effect February 1 of this year and remain in effect until February 26 unless readopted or rescinded. Therefore, it is not a matter of if there will be a permanent solution, but when. The legal process in place allows for scientifically supported decisions by the State Water Board. The district respectfully asks the Mendocino County Supervisors if their collective understanding and expertise is sufficient to take on a position on AB 263, and if they are confident that the precedent-setting nature of this bill will not result in negative consequences for Mendocino County watersheds in the future. There have been some great points that have been made today on both the support and oppose. I'm not suggesting what this board should vote on today, other than don't vote today. Don't make a decision today unless you're absolutely certain that you understand what the consequences could be for our own county. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Any further comments?
Seeing none.
None online?
Seeing none.
Okay. Okay, back to the board. All right, Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the author's intent in bringing this forward, but I want to raise some concerns outside of the merits of the policy itself and around whether this body should be weighing in on a decision that impacts other counties. We have one county that supports this. We have Siskiyou County, the most heavily impacted county, opposing this. RCRC is going to stay out of it because the member counties have conflicting viewpoints. So I really don't feel that this is appropriate for us to be weighing in on. This is a highly contentious piece of legislation. As it has not been set for its first committee hearing yet, the full list of stakeholders and their positions have not even been fleshed out. We don't have the full list yet. I think it's too preliminary for this board to weigh on and possibly completely inappropriate.
Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. Taking a stance on legislation unrelated to Mendocino County sets a precedent that could lead to increased involvement in matters outside of our scope. We should maintain a clear standard for when and how we engage with state or regional issues to ensure our efforts remain aligned with the interests of our constituents and best utilizes limited county resources. I've been an elected official for 10 years and have maintained that local political bodies should remain focused on their agencies and the residents that they represent. To be clear, this is not a stance in support or in opposition of this bill. This is a procedural stance that I've maintained as both a city council member and a county supervisor.
Okay, Supervisor Supervisor Norvell.
Yeah, thank you. So I came into this having received a lot of support for approval of this from my district. I'm not sure I got any opposed, but I'm going to agree with Supervisor Mulhern a little bit about process. And considering that today, based on what a couple of the last speakers have said about weighing in on somebody else's business and, how would we feel if somebody was trying to influence what's going to affect us. And it was also mentioned about our own water issues with the Potter Valley situation. And it was mentioned the fact that as a board or the county hasn't taken a real heavy stance on that, and we have our own issues there and concerns. And I don't want to infer that Supervisor Klein is not neck deep in that issue. I'm sure she is. I'm not. So I'm a little bit torn right now, but it does bother me that the people that in Siskiyou that are opposing this, we have that same group from our county here doing the same thing and, asking us to put ourselves in their position. And I struggle with that. And I think I'm leaning towards if we were having a bigger hand in doing more for our own water situation, and that's not inferring that we're not doing anything, but specifically the Potter Valley Dam, I would be more inclined to weigh in on somebody else's business. So again, I came in leaning towards approving it, but I'm certainly going the other way now, unless one of my colleagues can sway me the other way.
Right. Seeing no further markers, I'll make some comments. First of all, I appreciate Assemblymember Rogers for bringing this forward and supporting, the tribal entities, the Karuk and the Yurok, and what they're trying to do and maintain the salmon flows of, that's critically important in this day and age. And so I really appreciate the legislation coming forward. I've looked at our legislative platform, and I haven't been able to find anything that would support our support of this. All I found was, and maybe Kelly Hansen could correct me if I'm wrong, but what I found on this was about local control and what we have in our legislative platform about that. So I think that if we wanted to change something, we would go through that process with the GGC and look at local control. So Ms. Hansen, if you have something in the legislative platform regarding this issue, I'd appreciate hearing from you.
Sure. Kelly Hansen with the Executive Office. I did spend some time looking through our 2025 legislative platform on this issue. Unfortunately, I did not find anything that I believe would support this issue. I did find 2 items that do tend to be in opposition of this item. Under Economic and Community Development, we do have an item that says, oppose legislation that creates restrictions on local control of land use and development. And then under Natural Resources, we also have an item that says support local control of groundwater management, including well drilling standards and permitting. So We tend to favor in our legislative platform items that support local control.
Yeah, and I also saw in the guiding principles that we have at the beginning of the legislative platform, that guiding principle number 5 is support legislation that preserves local control, oppose legislation that diminishes local control of services and revenues. So I'm kind of seeing the same thing that you've brought up. I think that if we want to change that or provide more flexibility, then that would be through the GGC process, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And, so thank you. Saying what I did about Assemblymember Rogers bringing this forward, and I appreciate that, kind of like what I was trying to do with our riparian protections in Mendocino County, and that got voted down here, and also with the well drilling and extraction, and that got voted down. And so it's kind of, I have a problem in imposing something on other counties when we can't do it ourselves. So with that, I'll give it back to the Supervisor Williams.
There's nothing to give it back, Chair.
Okay. So what if we just have like a watch position on this? And we watch where this legislation goes, and if you wanted to bring it back in the future, you could do that. Would that work? Because things change during, like my understanding is that the supervisors in Humboldt County put a 4-year sunset date on this legislation. That's their letter of support included that sunset. So if that kind of stuff happens during the legislative process and maybe the Farm Bureau comes on board, we have a better chance of passing it, a letter of support at this level. Supervisor Norvell.
Yeah, a quick question for one of my colleagues. Supervisor Klein, you had mentioned also that this, the timing of it is not really there yet, and it has not got to committee. Maybe with your extensive knowledge of policy, if you could help me understand the process a little bit, and maybe when you think it would be more timely to weigh in on this.
Yeah, happy to. So my understanding is had not been set for its first policy committee hearing, which should happen sometime in April, and the author's office is happy to correct me if I say something that's inaccurate. But if it passes out of committee, it will be then referred to appropriations, which is the fiscal committee. The state will weigh whether, the legislature will weigh whether it wants to fund this effort if there are costs over $500,000. And then it will move to the other house, the state senate, and then it will go through the exact same process, policy committee and then appropriations, if keyed as fiscal.
Thank you.
Very good. And we have a representative from Assemblymember Rogers' office, Scott Alonso. So if you'd like to clarify anything on that.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Chair. Just a quick item. The bill is now being heard on April 8th in the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee. So actually the timing is critical for any organization to weigh in because you have to submit a week before. So yeah, that's the latest. I just double checked that. So it is April 8th.
Okay.
Thanks.
So for this iteration, now would be the time. Okay. All right. So since we don't have a motion, we'll move on. Okay. Okay, and why don't we, let's see, it's time for a break. So we'll take a break until 10:40.
Everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él. De quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo. Y Y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land and when you're in baby world you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping you know that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de Estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
You know, my experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be any changes in the schedule.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I still feel the challenge of being a parent now in today's world is immense. I think that you need support.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help, because you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it, because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history of, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
¿Cómo pensar educarla? Ajá. Cómo educar a un hijo, y porque pues nosotros nunca, es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, like they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me, even though I was not a first-time mom. I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. She was straightforward when, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. It's just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her. And I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Like, even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. The fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá, lo primero que haría sería recomendarle el programa, porque te entrega mucho apoyo, mucha información y más que nada como apoyo emocional, una guía, te da una visión diferente de cómo es ser papá aquí, quizás en este país.
Y así pues es un bonito programa, porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad, y en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, nos comunicamos por
Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra casa. A veces nosotros vamos a Wellits y puede ser en el parque. Gaby llega, como hacemos un resumen de cómo ha ido nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro. Vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo. A veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras, y jugamos un ratito y conversamos.
A mí personalmente también me ayudó mucho a obtener mi licencia a conducir, que era un objetivo que teníamos en cuanto a la familia,
sí.
para poder estar tranquilos, así que encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
El objetivo del programa es que las familias estén bien, y que las familias estén bien significa niños felices, niños sanos, y eso en un futuro es adultos sanos y un mundo mejor. Entonces está bueno.
She has made me feel like I'm important and I can go at my own pace, and that's all you need sometimes when you're feeling like you got nobody.
It was helpful to have somebody there kind of holding my hand and guiding me and letting me know this is kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know? That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy, como que el ambiente era muy familiar. Entonces yo me sentí muy cómoda.
Felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family. When I first realized that I was going to be a parent, I was super scared. After 2 or 3 weeks of meeting in the home visiting program, I was totally comfortable with the fact that I was going to have a baby. Yes, I was still scared, but at the same time, I felt like I had some sense of strength behind me.
If I didn't have those resources that Jeanette provided me, I think it would be harder now.
I got into the program and I realized, like, oh, this is nice. And now look at me, I work at a family resource center with parents and families, all this stuff.
I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to meet my home visitor, because without her, I think that I would be 10 steps behind from where I'm at right now.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, como
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history.
We're going to take a little thing out of order right now because members of the Mendocino County Grand Jury are still in attendance. And item 3G was the proclamation recognizing March 2025 as Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month in Mendocino County. So I'd like to recognize that and bring Mary Lydham Thomas to speak about the importance of the grand jury. She is a foreperson of the grand jury.
Thank you, supervisors. Thank you very much for recognizing the grand jury. It really is an honor to serve on the grand jury, to serve with the Board of Supervisors. We're grateful to you for all the great work you do with this county, making this county better. And that's really our job as a grand jury also, is to provide oversight mainly for the taxpayers and how their monies are spent, but to work for the betterment of this county, just like you do. You have a great job, a difficult job, and we're glad to be able to partner with you in making this county better. And the publicity of you recognizing the grand jury also, we hope will help recruit people to join the grand jury. And that's really what we'd like to see, is more and more of our residents in Mendocino County being on the grand jury. It's a noble effort. We work tirelessly. This amazing grand jury that we have this year, it's impressive, the talent and the time they put forth, and everybody enjoys it. And we're friends, and we can't take this home and talk to our spouses about it because that's a misdemeanor. So we have to talk to each other. And you build bonds and excitement in all the interest and investigations that we do. And so the fact that you help highlight that for us is really great. So we do want to thank you for that, and just the opportunity to spread the word throughout the county for that. And again, an appreciation for all the good work that you do as supervisors.
So if a person is interested in being on the grand jury, what do they do?
They go online, well, they can call anybody in the grand jury, on the grand jury, and our names have been put out there. It's not real public, but there is a grand jury link on the website, and there is an application to apply for the grand jury, and that's a great way to do it. And then the judge is the one that chooses the grand jurors. So we are a branch of the judicial system, and that's the process that's used. Does that answer your question?
So they could Google like Mendocino County Grand Jury.
Yes, exactly.
Fill out the application.
Right.
And that would be the process.
That would be the process.
Okay, very good.
And then turn it in, yeah. No, thanks for clarifying that. Okay.
Well, very much appreciate the grand jury and all your efforts to promote transparency, accountability, and efficiency in the county, and all the other governmental agencies in Mendocino County.
We've learned a lot, and we're very impressed with what we've learned. Yeah. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Moving on to item 4D, Chief Executive Officer's report. Supervisor Mulhern, did you have a, okay.
Oh, thank you, Chair. This morning I would like to submit my report as written, but I'd also like to add a piece. Fire hazard safety zones. CAL FIRE has released updated maps for the fire safety zones. The maps now include land in local responsible areas of the county and cities. The state fire marshal is mandated by Government Code 51178 to identify levels of fire hazard based on consistent statewide criteria and expected severity of fire hazards. Another Government Code 51179 requires the state fire marshal to make recommendations of fire hazard safety zones to local agencies for their designation and adoption by ordinance. Local agencies, such as counties, are required to adopt the CAL FIRE fire hazard safety zones by ordinance. Local agencies can make changes to the severity recommendations by the state fire marshal, but only to increase, not to decrease the recommended severity. Public comment on those updated zones can be submitted by visiting mendoready.org on the current County of Mendocino's emergency page. You will find a link to the survey where you can comment. Comments can be submitted. The public comment period closes May 20th. For those without access to a computer and the internet, feedback can be submitted by calling Mendocino County OES at 707-234-6398. Thank you.
Right, Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I very frequently thank the CEO for the report as a way to communicate with constituents. I think it's important. We are 5 individually elected persons, and we have different priorities and goals, and the information that we share is sometimes different. And also the boards and committees that we serve on are very different. We had a conversation about the CEO's roles and responsibilities. And while I understand that the CEO is not responsible for any elected officials that act as department heads for submitting reports in writing, I would like to encourage those elected officials, the district attorney, the sheriff, the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, the assessor, clerk, recorder to submit reports for the CEO report. But as far as internal departments, I really need to see something from the departments that have not been reporting. And I don't need it. Transportation is one of them. Probation, I think, is another. And I understand they mostly report to the courts, but it would be nice to be able to include them as we're talking to the public about the work that they're doing. So I will continue to be a broken record about this every single time the CEO report comes up, unless my colleagues would like to say that this is an unnecessary conversation to be had, and then I will just take it offline. But if you'd like to hear from all of the departments, I just think it's important, and it's a way that we have access to folks that are also elected officials so that they can share with us the work that they are doing. Yes, they have the opportunity to come and give oral, comments during the Board of Supervisors meeting, and I think that's really important. But being able to express the data without having to try to remember and track all of it, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So appreciate you bringing it up.
Sheriff, if I may. I followed up with a couple of departments that normally write every month this month and asked, and they said they had nothing new to report. So I think some of the departments have committed to doing quarterly instead of every monthly. So I will work with them. I'm sure they've heard your request as well.
Okay. Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, a question for CEO Antle in regards to the severity maps done by CAL FIRE. Will the county be submitting any kind of response?
So it will come back to you once the public comment period is over to put an ordinance in and working with county council on that.
Thank you.
And I know that we had a budget workshop last meeting, and we're having another budget workshop in April 8th in Willits, and then one in May before the 2-day budget finale in June.
That's correct. And we're also holding a listening session over on the coast March 31st in the afternoon, I believe 2 to 4, just
Okay.
for staff.
And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the financial reports and the actuals versus what's budgeted. Where are we with the actuals? So far?
Currently, the last that was support, we presented that in January at the workshop. We also presented that when we did mid-year, which date escapes me at the moment, but I assume it was in February. And at that point, for the information that we had for expenses, we were about right where we should be. I think one of the expense lines was like the 1000 series was at 46%, and the 2000 series was roughly around the same. It was hard at that time, as always, because all the revenue has not come in. Our revenues come in typically from the state and feds on a quarterly basis, as well as our tax, and all of the property tax comes in twice a year. So it's really hard to get a beat on our revenue, but through the reporting and the experience at the time, we were expecting to hit that. And if you remember, we balanced the budget with $7 million of one-time funds at the time of budget adoption. And it was reported to you at mid-year that we are only needing 4.2 of that money. So we're moving along. We were able to repay Measure B. This board voted to send those monies back to Measure B. So there's progress, but again, we're projecting to come in to fiscal year 25-26 needing one-time funds again, and possibly experiencing a decrease in sales tax and TOT, as the state is seeing that as well. So it's not a great rosy picture, but if you're looking to revenue and expense for the current fiscal year, we're about where we should be.
And some of those expenses are seasonal too.
Correct.
Correct.
So
even though it's 50% of the year, that
we
could
may
have greater
already,
expenses.
Yeah, we may have already paid, say, our liability insurance all the way out, things like that.
Okay. Okay, very good, thank you. Right. Any public comment? None in the chambers? Any online?
Seeing none.
Okay, so we'll accept the report. And moving on to item 4E, discussion and possible action, including review, adoption, amendment, consideration, or ratification of legislation pursuant to the adopted legislative platform. Okay, nothing to report on that?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Agenda item 4F, Supervisors Reports regarding board special assignments, standing and ad hoc committee meetings, and other items of general interest. Okay, we'll go this way. Supervisor Norvell.
Thank you. A couple of things. The Prop 47 grant that the city of Fort Bragg got, working with a local NGO and also in collaborations with the Sheriff's Department, the idea being expanding cruise services from Mendocino to Westport. We had our first oversight committee meeting that I'm on, along with Supervisor Williams. We were looking at bylaws and just kind of first steps. The board is a great makeup. We've got one local doctor. We've got members from the faith-based organizations, a member from the DA's office is there, a local NGO are represented, and then we've also got somebody on the committee who's been previously homeless, which is nice to have that voice in the room as well. I did attend the BHAB meeting. We got presentations from the service providers about shelters and status there. And then I do have one question for the chair. I've got the harbor master from Noyo Harbor reaching out and wanting to give an update to the Board of Supervisors. And I was wondering if 4A is an appropriate spot for that in the future.
Well, I think 4A needs to be for department heads, but certainly you can bring forth an item and we'll do the presentation.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mulherin.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight a couple of meetings that I attended for the board. The Behavioral Health Advisory Board met, and they have a new sort of way that they're doing the agenda this year, and they're trying to include more informational topics. So this meeting, they had an update from some of the folks that provide homeless services, including Building Bridges, which is run by RCS, the Mendocino Coast Hospitality Center in Fort Bragg, and then the Mendocino County Behavioral Health Department's Mobile Outreach and Prevention Team to just talk about how behavioral health and SUDT services overlaps. So I think that was really helpful for some of the members of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board to hear from those service providers, although their funding is not specifically tied to Mendocino County Behavioral Health. It is tied to the Mendocino COC, and they met this month as well on the 17th. And I just wanted to, again, highlight that it's important, if you're interested in homeless issues in Mendocino County, that you engage with the COC. There are 31 people on the general membership and board. They will be meeting again April 21st. Those meetings are available on Zoom and on YouTube so that you can watch. But they are talking about the updates on federal and state funding, including the emergency solution grants and the homeless housing assistance and prevention funds. And there are also various committees that folks that are interested in the unhoused can get involved in, like Shelter and Solutions and Information System Performance, the Homeless Management Information System, and how we are tracking how folks are using services in our community. They expect some initial review of the point-in-time count from 2025 available in the next couple of months. However, the HUD submission timeline has not yet been released and may be delayed. So the final outcome of that report may also be delayed. I also did want to highlight that the Behavioral Health Department is updating the MHSA, the Mental Health Services Act plan. That is open for public comment through April 4th. You can find that on our county website, or also you can contact Rena Ford at fordre@mendocinocounty.gov or me, and I'll send you more information. But MHSA funding serves for the community services and supports plans, the prevention and early intervention programs, the innovation program funds, the workforce education and training programs, and capital facilities and information technology for mental health services in our county. And again, that does include specialty mental health and substance use disorder treatment. So if you're interested in those topics, there's an opportunity to submit your feedback on the way that the program is currently working, coming up on April 3rd from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Willits Library. That will also be available via Teams if you wish to participate remotely. As an aside, I had the opportunity to proctor the middle college academic decathlon speeches dress rehearsal, and got to hear from some high school students that had a 3-minute timeline to share a topic of interest. And I always say that as a person that has participated in candidate forums, you don't know the pressure of being told you have 30 seconds until you're actually, someone is holding up a sign that says 30 seconds for you to speak. But very interestingly enough, some of the kids did share some of their own experiences with working with county behavioral health system and our service providers, or working with youth programs like SPACE, performing arts youth programs. And so it was a great opportunity to hear from our youth and connect with them a little bit before they go on to the state decathlon, I guess, competition.
Supervisor Norvell.
Yes, thank you. I forgot to mention that it was brought up at the BHAB meeting. There was a request, I believe it was from Supervisor Klein, to live stream the meetings. That was on their agenda, and they did approve purchasing equipment to facilitate that in the future.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Williams.
Let's see. I attended the Prop 47 advisory, and I'm very hopeful about the program. It's spreading into District 5. It's Fort Bragg's, the same people who brought us the highly successful crew are now spreading across out of city limits and across district lines. And I think they have a great plan. I'm looking forward to seeing the results. Met with the at the Healthcare District Standing Committee on Planning. This is for rebuilding the Coast Hospital to meet seismic code. Otherwise, it closes in 2030, which would be a huge economic hit and welfare hit to the county as a whole. Had another iteration of a meeting regarding water for the town of Mendocino. It surprises me that under the state system, it may be more timely and cheaper to run a pipeline from Fort Bragg to Mendocino than to build a reservoir close to the town. But that's apparently the world we live in. Golden State Connect Authority is tomorrow. I'm not expecting a lot of broadband wins for Mendocino County, just the way the funding has been distributed. It's questionable whether we're going to see more than a nominal difference here, but I'll update you after that meeting. And last, I've heard from a lot of constituents regarding roads. They've been begging me to not support any budget that doesn't include a significant increase to road maintenance.
Supervisor Klein.
Yes, last week I participated in a panel discussion hosted by the City of Cloverdale. They held a special meeting to discuss what was happening with the Potter Valley project. There were a number of panelists, including elected officials from Sonoma, Lake, and Mendocino counties. It was a very robust discussion, of which the two general themes were we should not remove the dams and we should maintain the project as is, and we should also, an opposing or complementary, one could say, proposal that in the Water and Power Commission has been involved with regarding maintaining a diversion post-dam removal. Both of these viewpoints certainly have their merits and are important in the conversation. There was a lot of frustration from the crowd because people are uncertain and people are scared about their water resource. I'm thankful that there were folks willing to host that panel, host that discussion, and hope that we can do something similar here in Mendocino County so folks can have their voices heard. As Supervisor Norvell mentioned, I had requested that BHAB discuss a transparency measure of streaming their meetings. I'm really appreciative to them for supporting that. I'm looking forward to being able to go back and listen to their meetings in the future, because often I'm only able to pop in for about an hour before I have to leave. So I think that's a great opportunity for us to be more transparent with the public and allow for more engagement, more opportunities for engagement. I have RCRC tomorrow, the rural counties representative, so we'll hopefully be bringing forward some updates on what's happening with the state and other legislation. And then I'm also working with public health and behavioral health on a nitrous oxide ban similar to what the city of Ukiah and the city of Willits have done.
All right, very good. Let's see. Last time I talked about the travel reimbursement and the budget that we have allocated for the Board of Supervisors. Turns out that there's a Mendocino County Board of Supervisors expenditure and reimbursement policy, and it was created in 2009. It was revised in 2011, And it says the Board of Supervisors shall review this policy in January of each year commencing January 2009. So I think we've gone a few years without even looking at this. So I'm recommending that we have an ad hoc committee. I would be willing to be on it to look at this policy and to update it and see how it jives with our current budget. So if anyone would like to be on the ad hoc with me, look at this, great. Okay. Well, I'll do it myself then. Okay, I'll work with staff and I'll bring something back to the board. Okay. The budget plan, you know, we heard from the CEO that we don't have a balanced budget. We're, you know, last time I think it was said that we were $28 million in the hole, but maybe that's closer to 15 million after the kind of the wish list stuff is taken out, and we still got a lot of work to do to get our budget to a point where we can balance it. And of course, we will have a balanced budget in June. But we have this workshop in April 8th in Willits, and that's coming up in 2 weeks. What I would like to see is us bringing forth ideas to balance the budget. Because we can say all day long that we want money for this or that, but really the idea is we got to get this balanced budget. So any ideas that are forthcoming would be appreciated. Okay, Supervisor Williams, you have something to say?
Could I get the a report of the line item transactions for the last fiscal year? I would volunteer to go through there with a red pencil and cross out ones that I think may get us to a balanced budget.
Okay, looking to the
Go ahead.
CEO. Is that possible?
If I understand correctly, it should be possible. I mean, most all that information's in the budget book. And it's online as well.
Yeah, so the budget book doesn't have a lot of detail. It has categories, but I think it's a good question to ask. I appreciate the chair asking. We should all be brainstorming how to get to a balanced budget. I'm suggesting it's not possible without the data, without detailed information on how we're spending. I couldn't tell the sheriff, take $1 million out of your budget without seeing every line item of how that was spent in the prior year. So if I could get that report, we should all have that report, and the public should have it, frankly. But if we could get that individual line item of every transaction, I think it's a worthwhile exercise to go through and see what we could eliminate.
Okay. May I ask, every transaction, like every invoice that was paid?
I'm afraid so. It's not possible for us to do this brainstorming based on categories, because if we look at the category, we don't know what it represents, suggesting a decrease, we don't know what we would be cutting. So if we're being asked to brainstorm getting to a balanced budget, we need the same information staff would have. I imagine staff, when you come up with a draft budget, you're looking not just at the categories, you're looking at the individual transactions that will make up the bulk of spending in those categories.
It's a detailed budget
Yeah.
entry is, I think, what you're asking.
Yeah. So if you could get us something more detailed than what we have, I don't think the budget book level of detail is adequate to carry out the task I'm being asked to do.
I have to look at what the detail is that we have behind those expenditures and make sure there wasn't anything that we had to remove. But I think we can get it. Most likely I'll have to be electronic. It's going to be.
Yeah, electronic would be great. And ideally in
document.
a format that we can parse, not a PDF, but somehow delimited. Chair, can you advise us? I think it's best if this runs through you. When would you like us to do this exercise and bring the ideas forward? When can we get the underlying data to do the exercise?
Hey, well, we should have been working on this for the last 6 months, and so anytime you bring it forward is certainly welcome. Sooner the better. And the question is about when can we expect to get that information, right? So I'll look to the CEO.
Yeah, I just sent a message to my team confirming that we can get that information. And then if we can get it, it shouldn't take us long to pull the file and upload it.
Okay, so
I don't know what county council may have to review or do some redactions. I'm not quite sure we can release every bit of every detail if there's protected information on some of those line items.
what if Supervisor Williams? Oh, County Council.
Chair, Chair, if I may, if we're talking about individual transactions, there could be items like related to payments for foster children. There are certain things that we have to redact, certain identifying information, but I think we could review. I don't know the volume of what the records will be, but we certainly would assist in reviewing that.
Supervisor Williams? I mean, I think what you're asking is like every expenditure for the county for this budget year. And
Otherwise, I'm looking at
okay,
categories that did not have enough granularity for us to do meaningful.
So because it seems like there could be thousands and thousands of these, why don't we start off with one department or one, you know, like the executive office or the supervisors or whatever, and start going piece by piece and get that as soon as possible. And then if that's fruitful, then we move on and start looking at other departments in the whole county. Because I'm afraid that we'll just get so much that it's useless, and staff has used a lot of time to pull something together.
Yeah, Chair, I think that sounds reasonable, except we're under a time constraint. So if you want us to get this done, this exercise done in time for the budgeting process, we probably need it all sooner than later.
Okay, but what if we started with one or two areas right now, and if we can get that, and we can probably look at it before April 8th.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
Very good.
Start with 3. Is that a good?
3?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, what do you think that we should do?
Facilities, because we had a facilities report that opened a lot of questions. I think that would be a good category. I think Department of Transportation, not that we want to cut, but so that we can understand better where some of the blocks are, which categories we could fund that would have the most return on investment as far as public good. And I don't know, how about social services? It's been a while since we've reviewed social services.
Well, social services is going to be a huge one, right? And it's not that much general fund. So let's see, I'm looking to the CEO.
Yeah, Charlotte, do you need to go first or?
I could speak to that. I know that we're dealing with a Public Records Act request related to somewhat similar to this request, and it's been taking several months to get through review. So I don't know without assessing the volume. I think it would be better to provide some time to staff to assess the volume before requesting it by a certain time, and allow us to report back on that, perhaps starting. And I do think social services is a huge department that will definitely require close review to protect confidentiality restrictions that we have.
Okay, Supervisor Williams, how about we do transportation, general services, or?
We no longer have a GSA.
What's it called now?
The executive office, I think it's called.
Yeah, you could do facilities.
Facilities.
And DOT, and then you want to do BOS budget, you want to do the executive office budget, assessor.
Let's do I think the BOS, because that's one that we can probably relate to and kind of go through and say this is what we need or don't need. Okay, are you all right with that?
Can I get clarification? Are we doing for this current year that we're in? We're in 24-25.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
That's what you want.
That's the year we're in.
Detailed transaction for the year that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, maybe another way to ask is when staff works on the budget, what underlying documents do you use? What level of detail? You
So we
must be
get-
looking at more than what we're seeing in the budget book.
So what we have asked the departments to do the last couple of years, and not all are compliant, is a detailed budget
Yeah.
entry. So when they submit for contracts line item, which is, to your point,
Yeah.
can be a very large item,
Yeah.
we ask what those expected contracts are for. And if it's a multi-year contract that, NAF care, for example, the jail, that's a 3 to 5 year contract. What do you expect to spend on NAF care under contracts? And then what other those line items are,
Right.
not line items, but the detail. It's a detailed budget entry that we have asked for.
Okay, so that, Super Chair, that, I would like to clarify, that's my request. I don't even care about the trailing year. I care about the department's projection in their budget ask for the year going forward, the level of detail that we have available today, whatever it is. I'm not
Okay.
asking for a new work product, just the detail that staff would use to assemble the budget. And could the board also learn which departments are not providing that level of detail?
Yeah,
You
I
said
think
some are- some have
for
not.
this year,
Yeah.
we've met with almost all of the departments, and I believe for this year, 25, 26, next year, the majority have done so. The current year, I don't have all that compliant.
Yeah, so let's just, I'd rather be forward-looking than analyze the past year. But you said the majority, so there's some that aren't. Are they planning to?
I haven't got through all, we still
Okay.
have one more day of budget hearings, sorry.
So I hope the board direction will be, we need it from all in order to do our job, and we need it in time for our normal budget discussions. Or an explanation of why it can't be produced.
Okay, so, and I'll go back to our original 3, is that let's get those 3, and then assume that the staff is working on getting the rest.
Well, John,
Okay.
I can probably live with that, but now that I understand that the majority of the departments have already produced these documents, if it's not asking for a new work product, if it's easy as just sharing with us,
Okay,
I would like it for all that are available.
okay, and we'll focus on those 3 first. Very good?
Yep.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
A question for the chair and Supervisor Williams. Are you proposing this work be done individually, or are we looking at an ad hoc to conduct this work?
I'm looking at it, I brought it up, to have each of us start thinking about where you think the cuts can come from. Okay, and I think that Supervisor Williams was trying to get more detail on how we're going to do that, so I appreciate that. But I don't want an ad hoc to be doing this. I think that it's a
Why?
individual, and we're coming back as a board to deal with this together. You know, we did have budget ad hocs in the past, and I just think that it should be everyone coming together and sharing what they know. I mean, you can, all day long, you can talk to one other supervisor about it. So,
It was just a question.
yeah, okay. Supervisor Williams.
Clarifying question. I heard we're $28 million away, maybe 15 million now. When we finally get to that balanced budget, that doesn't leave any funding for roads. That's correct? We haven't budgeted it in, because one of the ideas that came out of our workshop in January at the,
Yeah.
for lack of
Okay.
a better name, Tom Ullman Training Center.
Okay, Supervisor Williams,
Yes.
can I stop you? Because I think that we might be going down a path that gets us off of my supervisor
Oh, yeah.
report. Okay. That, the idea is, we heard what the budget is from the CEO's report. If there were additional funding going to roads, it would be on top of that 28 or the 15 million. And so we're trying to figure out how to balance the budget. And so bring your ideas, because if someone thinks that roads should be funded at a greater level, then we need to figure out what we're going to cut to do that at this point. Anyway, that's just, I'll continue on with my supervisor report. Okay, so I think that we need to look at volunteer voluntary incentive separation plans. We did that. It's like a golden handshake. And we did it for, I think, 4 last year. We just approved 2 at the other board meeting a time or 2 ago. And each one of those can get a couple $100,000 in savings. And so I think that we need to look at all options on that. The max, there's a cost of $17,500 for those max. I totally support the concept of the MAC, but do they need that kind of budget of $5,000 for Walala or $2,500 for every other MAC? Do they need that? And can that, we can look at that. Or the Mendocino Historical Review Board is still a $30,000 hit to the general fund. What I'd like too is a list of the general funded contracts with the amounts for fiscal year 25-26. And I guess with a list of those contracts, we're gonna need, an analysis of opportunities for savings, raw data versus analysis, and some are, match funding sources, others are non-grants, but, we need to look at those contracts closely. And I think that that's getting to what we're trying to get is greater detail on how this budget is constructed. So, if you're able to do part of that by April 8th, that'd be great.
So if I may kind of clarify the ask, is all contracts, I believe there was a period of time when we had the GDC looking at all contracts, and it was quite a heavy lift. I think we did DOT, Sheriff's Office, and one other. I believe it was Supervisor Mulheron and Supervisor Williams, and went through that detail again. We have many contracts. So if we could, again, break it down into departments, whether you want to do those first 3 that you talked about, that's a big lift.
Okay. Can we start with those 3 then?
Okay.
All right. Looking at the budget and in bad shape, that before we start getting more drastic, I think we need to look at things like conferences and overall cost for all departments and what it's costing to send people out of county or out of state, and get that kind of information. The mental health funding for the new jail wing, and are there possibilities of looking at other funding sources like the opioid settlement or Measure B or anything like that? So that's just a question that maybe we could address on April 8th. Okay. And, okay. And so I know Supervisor Norvell met with some people about the red routes, and it's an imposition of Caltrans and requiring that low bed truckers get a special permit every time they travel on some of the highways in Mendocino County, and it's been a real burden on a lot of the trucking industry, and which corresponds to other industries too. And so with the board's approval, I'm just going to write a letter on behalf of the board to Caltrans and CHP to work this out, if it's all right. Because the meetings we've had, CEO Antle and I met with Senator McGuire, we talked about it. I had a Caltrans meeting last week with the district director. We talked about it. Supervisor Norvell's talked about it. And there's just frustration that things aren't really happening as fast. And with the trucking season coming on, I think we need to be a little more proactive. So, Supervisor Mulheron.
I had my pin up prior regarding the conversation that's happening about the budget, but can you clarify what kind of letter is it that you're wanting to send?
just a letter saying that they need to really take a close look at what their data is for imposing these red routes on a lot of the highways in Mendocino County.
Well, I think that I'd go further than that. I mean, I think that I understand you're asking them for more information or saying they need to be more cautious about it, but I think that I generally support moving in a different direction where our local contractors and truckers that know the routes are not having to jump through these state hoops. So I feel like I understand the intent, but I think that having conversations with Caltrans, with our state representatives, is probably a more proactive approach than sending a letter.
Well, I appreciate that. And the letter would be in opposition to having these designated highways as red routes. And so we have had those conversations with our representatives in Sacramento, and so there's just a feeling like we need to make it official and put it in writing. Supervisor Williams.
Are we making a policy decision through the supervisor's report? Is that what we're doing? I don't know that we can do that.
Yeah. Let's see.
I don't have a position on this. I'll be happy to consider it and happy to support you, but I don't know procedurally if this is the best.
I would recommend, if you want to direct staff to, you could have staff bring something back, or you could bring something back, but I think if, other than making informational requests, I think we may be going beyond what we've agendized this for.
Maybe we can have staff bring back a letter for our consideration at the April 8th meeting. Okay? And the cannabis issue, in that density or the cultivation limit, it's going to the General Government Committee tomorrow. I hope that the General Government Committee can look at it and bring back some recommendation to the board, hopefully at the April 8th meeting, so that we can move on from this issue. All right? I was at the Mendocino County Employees Retirement Association meeting last week, and we chose an international small cap manager, and so it's just an interesting process looking at the returns that these different managers bring forth and their fees and how that selection is made. Just because we're dealing with our pension fund, which is almost $800 million. And so when we look at these different asset allocations, it could be 10 million here, 20 million there, and trying to figure out who's the best person to manage those funds. And then lastly, I was at the Juvenile Justice CC Coordination Council. Is that it? Anyway, last Friday, and they were talking about their budget and approving the plan that they have for working with our at-risk youth. And certainly there's a lot of good work being done in Mendocino County in relation to the youth and issues that we have throughout the county. And so I appreciate Chief Locatelli, who's the chair of that committee, and the work that everyone, there's about 20 people on the board, everyone does, from the judge to the CASA and everyone in between, the sheriff, and a lot of people trying to look out for the youth of Mendocino County, so that's important. And with that, we'll go to, agenda item 6, which is closed session. And the board will now adjourn to closed session to hear item 6A, 6B, and 6C. The board will reconvene no earlier than 12:30. And is there any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Any online?
Seeing none.
Okay, we will adjourn to closed session now.
was very relatable, very personal. And, you know, with her getting to know my kids, you know, she got to kind of help guide me along the way. I mean, there were so many cool things that I've learned.
I went from a very like rough type of life. I was homeless, and she was able to help me get into school, and I actually have enough credits to graduate with a business degree right now.
I think I really want to mention just that I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
I want other people and parents to know that the home visiting is not something that you should be afraid of. It's actually something that is needed.
You know, because she's not just here for her, she's here to help with all of it. She helped me create a safe space where I feel comfortable enough to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help. It's always okay to have extra support.
I would say, give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. There's some perks, you know. They've got some great resources.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit mendoready.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
I realized that my life was going to change dramatically in ways that I did not know or understand or even comprehend. I was going to have to really go to the well and become accountable and adjust to a lot of things differently.
Que queríamos era que naciera, ya, sí, ya quiero tener, entonces ahorita lo que tenemos es aprovecharla, quererla y cuidarla lo más que se pueda.
Creo que a todos nos preocupa la primera vez que nos dicen que vamos a ser padres.
When we started the program, my daughter was about 3 months, and my daughter's 22 months now. Something I love about my child, that she's healthy, she's happy, she knows that she's cared for and loved. Those are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that she had, and she has them.
I'm happy today with my daughter. She's the greatest thing in my life, and I'm glad to wake up and see her, and everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él, de quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo. Y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land, and when you're in baby world, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping you know that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de Estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
You know, my experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be any changes in the schedule.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I still feel the challenge of being a parent now in today's world is immense. I think that you need support.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help, because you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history of, you know, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, you know, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
Cómo pensar educarla, ajá. Cómo educar a un hijo y porque pues nosotros nunca es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, you know, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, like they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me, even though I was not a first-time mom. I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. You know, she was straightforward when, you know, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. Just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her, and I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, you know, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, you know, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, you know, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Like, even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You know, you get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. The fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá, lo primero que haría sería recomendarle el programa porque te entrega mucho apoyo, mucha información y más que nada como apoyo emocional, una guía, te da una visión diferente de cómo es ser papá aquí, quizás en este país.
Y así pues es algo, un bonito programa, porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad, y en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, nos comunicamos por Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra casa. A veces nosotros vamos a Wellits y puede ser en el parque. Gaby llega, hacemos un resumen de cómo ha ido nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro. Vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo. A veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras, y jugamos un ratito y conversamos.
A mí personalmente también me ayudó mucho a obtener mi licencia a conducir, que era un objetivo que teníamos en cuanto a la familia, sí, para poder estar tranquilos, así que encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
El objetivo del programa es que las familias estén bien, y que las familias estén bien significa niños felices, niños sanos, y eso en un futuro es adultos sanos y un mundo mejor. Entonces está bueno.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
She has made me feel like I'm important and I can go at my own pace, and that's all you need sometimes when you're feeling like you got nobody.
It was helpful to have somebody there kind of holding my hand and guiding me and letting me know this is kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know. That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy, como que el ambiente era muy familiar. Entonces yo me sentí muy cómoda.
Felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
When I first realized that I was going to be a parent, I was super scared. After 2 or 3 weeks of meeting in the home visiting program, I was totally comfortable with the fact that I was going to have a baby. Yes, I was still scared, but at the same time, I felt like I had some sense of strength behind me.
If I didn't have those resources that Jeanette provided me, I think it would be harder now.
I got into the program and I realized, like, oh, this is nice. And now look at me. I work at a family resource center with parents and families, all this stuff.
I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to meet my home visitor, because without her, I think that I would be 10 steps behind from where I'm at right now.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía. Cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
I don't know what's normal for a 22-month-old baby or an 18-month-old baby, you know. When we get together, we usually discuss and get some progress made with the baby. It makes me feel comfortable, and I associate my parenting with her, my home visitor, telling me, yeah, this is going great.
So it's nice to know where they're at, what stage they're at for every parent, and also to give, again, your children that head start in education.
If I had any questions with her, just call her up on the phone. You know, it was very relatable, very personal. And, you know, with her getting to know my kids, you know, she got to kind of help guide me along the way. I mean, there were so many cool things that I've learned.
I went from a very rough type of life. I was homeless, and she was able to help me get into school, and I actually have enough credits to graduate with a business degree right now.
I think I really want to mention just that I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
I want other people and parents to know that the home visiting is not something that you should be afraid of. It's actually something that is needed.
You know, because she's not just here for her, she's here to help with all of it. She helped me create a safe space where I feel comfortable enough to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help. It's always okay to have extra support.
I would say, give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. There's some perks, you know. They got great resources.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit MendoReady.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, MendoReady.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit MendoReady.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
I realized that my life was going to change dramatically in ways that I did not know or understand or even comprehend. I was going to have to really go to the well and become accountable and adjust to a lot of things differently.
Que queríamos era que naciera, ya, sí, ya quiero tener, entonces ahorita lo que tenemos es aprovecharla, quererla y cuidarla lo más que se pueda.
Creo que a todos nos preocupa la primera vez que nos dicen que vamos a ser padres.
When we started the program, my daughter was about 3 months, and my daughter's 22 months now. Something I love about my child, that she's healthy, she's happy, she knows that she's cared for and loved. Those are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that she had, and she has them.
I'm happy today with my daughter. She's the greatest thing in my life, and I'm glad to wake up and see her, and everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él, de quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo. Y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land, and when you're in baby world, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping you know that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de Estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
You know, my experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be any changes in the schedule.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I still feel the challenge of being a parent now in today's world is immense. I think that you need support.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help, because you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history of, you know, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, you know, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
Cómo pensar educarla, ajá. Cómo educar a un hijo y porque pues nosotros nunca es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, you know, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, like they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me. Even though I was not a first-time mom, I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. You know, she was straightforward when, you know, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. Just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her, and I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, you know, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, you know, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, you know, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Like, even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You know, you get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. And the fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá, lo primero que haría sería recomendarle el programa porque te entrega mucho apoyo, mucha información y más que nada como apoyo emocional, una guía, te da una visión diferente de cómo es ser papá aquí, quizás en este país.
Sí, pues es un bonito programa porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, nos comunicamos por Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra casa, a veces nosotros vamos a Willits y puede ser en el parque. Gaby llega, hacemos un resumen de cómo ha ido nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro, vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo, a veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras, y jugamos un ratito y conversamos.
A mí personalmente también me ayudó mucho a obtener mi licencia a conducir, que era un objetivo que teníamos en cuanto a la familia,
sí,
para poder estar tranquilos, así que encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
El objetivo del programa es que las familias estén bien, y que las familias estén bien significa niños felices, niños sanos, y eso en un futuro es adultos sanos y un mundo mejor. Entonces está bueno.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're gonna do, what you're gonna take with you, how you're gonna communicate, where you're gonna go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
She has made me feel like I'm important and I can go at my own pace, and that's all you need sometimes when you're feeling like you got nobody.
It was helpful to have somebody there kind of holding my hand and guiding me and letting me know this is kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know. That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy, como que el ambiente era muy familiar, entonces yo me sentí muy cómoda.
Felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
When I first realized that I was going to be a parent, I was super scared. After 2 or 3 weeks of meeting in the home visiting program, I was totally comfortable with the fact that I was going to have a baby. Yes, I was still scared, but at the same time, I felt like I had some sense of strength behind me.
If I didn't have those resources that Jeanette provided me, I think it would be harder now.
I got into the program and I realized, like, oh, this is nice. And now look at me, I work at a family resource center with parents and families, all this stuff.
I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to meet my home visitor, because without her, I think that I would be 10 steps behind from where I'm at right now.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía. Cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
I don't know what's normal for a 22-month-old baby or an 18-month-old baby, you know. When we get together, we usually discuss and get some progress made with the baby. It makes me feel comfortable, and I associate my parenting with her, my home visitor, telling me, yeah, this is going great.
So it's nice to know where they're at, what stage they're at for every parent, and also to give, again, your children that head start in education.
If I had any questions with her, just call her up on the phone. You know, it was very relatable, very personal. And, you know, with her getting to know my kids, you know, she got to kind of help guide me along the way. I mean, there were so many cool things that I've learned.
I went from a very rough type of life. I was homeless, and she was able to help me get into school, and I actually have enough credits to graduate with a business degree right now.
I think I really want to mention just that I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
I want other people and parents to know that the home visiting is not something that you should be afraid of. It's actually something that is needed.
You know, because she's not just here for her, she's here to help with all of it. She helped me create a safe space where I feel comfortable enough to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help. It's always okay to have extra support.
I would say, give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. There's some perks, you know. They got some great resources.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit MendoReady.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, MendoReady.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit MendoReady.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
I realized that my life was going to change dramatically in ways that I did not know or understand or even comprehend. I was going to have to really go to the well and become accountable and adjust to a lot of things differently.
Lo que queríamos era que naciera, ya, sí, ya quiero tener, entonces ahorita lo que tenemos es aprovecharla, quererla y cuidarla lo más que se pueda.
Creo que a todos nos preocupa la primera vez que nos dicen que vamos a ser padres.
When we started the program, my daughter was about 3 months, and my daughter's 22 months now. Something I love about my child, that she's healthy, she's happy, she knows that she's cared for and loved. Those are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that she had, and she has them.
I'm happy today with my daughter. She's the greatest thing in my life, and I'm glad to wake up and see her, and everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él, de quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo. Y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land, and when you're in baby world, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping you know that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de Estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
You know, my experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be any changes in the schedule.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I still feel the challenge of being a parent now in today's world is immense. I think that you need support.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa, que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help, because you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history of, you know, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, you know, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
Cómo pensar educarla, ajá. Cómo educar a un hijo y porque pues nosotros nunca es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, you know, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, like they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me, even though I was not a first-time mom. I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. You know, she was straightforward when, you know, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. It's just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her, and I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, you know, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, you know, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, you know, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Like, even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You know, you get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. And the fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá, lo primero que haría sería recomendarle el programa porque te entrega mucho apoyo, mucha información y más que nada como apoyo emocional, una guía, te da una visión diferente de cómo es ser papá aquí, quizás en este país.
Y así pues es algo, un bonito programa, porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad, y en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, nos comunicamos por Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra
And
casa.
for items 6A, 6B, and 6C, there's no reportable action. At 12:45, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.